Ethan had always considered himself unlucky, but he would soon learn that unlucky in space meant something entirely different. It started with a wrong turn, or maybe the universe itself nudging him in a new direction, down a corridor of shimmering alloy panels and hovering data consoles. He had come to the orbital station to refill his caffeine reserves, not to attend the annual interstellar gala of the Virelian Empire, a gathering of dignitaries, diplomats, and beings whose facial features seemed to defy human logic. And yet somehow there he was, wearing his standard-issue flight jacket, clutching a mug of coffee that vibrated with microgravity and muttering under his breath about why every interstellar map he'd ever seen looked like an abstract painting made by a drunk holographer. The Queen appeared before him as if summoned by cosmic irony. She was impossibly tall, her long ears brushing the tops of her jeweled shoulder clasps, and her eyes held a sharp intelligence softened by a rare vulnerability. Ethan blinked. "Oh great," he muttered, "space royalty with ears like satellite antennas." He tried to take a step back, but the floor panels subtly adjusted to his weight, and he almost spilled his coffee into a decorative holographic fountain. She smiled faintly, and it felt like the universe had just tilted on its axis, except she had a sense of humor buried beneath the regal exterior. Ethan attempted to introduce himself, which in his usual fashion meant tripping over his own words. I'm Ethan, Earth, coffee enthusiast. Totally unprepared for this," he said, nodding at the floating orbs of light that functioned as ambient mood indicators. The Queen raised an eyebrow, a small twitch of her ear betraying her amusement. "You wander into my court like a stray comet," she said. "Few do so intentionally." Ethan tried to nod seriously, but the vibration of the coffee mug caused it to perform a perfect zero-gravity pirouette, which made him snap his hand out in an accidental gesture that sent the mug spinning toward an elderly diplomat from the Endari cluster. The diplomat caught it midair, gave Ethan a withering glare, and whispered, "Earthlings." Before Ethan could recover from his near-cosmic faux pas, the daughter appeared. She was smaller than her mother but bore the same elongated ears that flicked like twin signal receivers. She leaned on a levitating console and grinned at Ethan with that mischievous confidence only someone who had spent decades navigating interstellar protocol without actual supervision could possess. "My mother's been searching for you for 20 years, she said, eyes sparkling. "Are you my father?" Ethan froze, because what else do you do when a beautiful, humanoid alien with long ears asks you something that makes you question every life choice you've ever made? He blinked, hoping this was some kind of elaborate holographic prank. He said, then coughed. "I don't even know if I'm ready for the responsibilities of fatherhood in zero gravity. Does it come with a manual? Are there coupons involved?" The daughter's smirk widened and she shook her head, muttering something about humans and their insistence on humor in the face of galactic crises. Ethan followed her through corridors that twisted in ways that made his stomach lurch as if gravity itself was playing a cosmic prank. The walls pulsed with light in reaction to passing footsteps, and the air hummed faintly with energy signatures that could, if miscalibrated, singe eyebrows, or, more worryingly, small furniture. The daughter explained that her mother had kept a secret from the galaxy. Years ago, she had a brief but significant encounter with a human, an event that Ethan vaguely remembered as a drunken starship mishap, and yet, somehow, it had resulted in her existence. Ethan tripped over a gravity-adjusting rug and nearly collided with a hovering tea service, prompting her to laugh, a high, musical sound that reverberated off the walls like wind chimes in a solar storm. The conversation turned to interstellar politics, alliances, and mysterious devices that Ethan couldn't pronounce without twisting his tongue, but he navigated it with clumsy charm. "So," he asked, balancing on a platform that felt like a floating trampoline, "if I am indeed the father, do I get any parental leave? Or do we just jet across nebulae and hope for the best?" She giggled, and Ethan realized that humor, despite the gravity of the situation, was their only bridge between human absurdity and alien sophistication. They arrived at a large observation deck, stars stretching infinitely beyond glass-like barriers. Ethan tried to focus on the stellar panoramas but kept sneaking glances at her, noticing the subtleties. The flick of her long ears when she smiled, the way her hair caught the ambient lights and seemed to shift colors subtly depending on her mood. "Beautiful," he muttered under his breath, and when she looked at him with mock annoyance, he quickly added, I meant the stars, definitely the stars. She rolled her eyes but didn't correct him. She led him to a smaller chamber where holographic projections depicted moments he didn't fully remember. His own face, younger, laughing with reckless abandon. A shadowy figure of the queen, mysterious and distant, but unmistakably her. Ethan tried to touch the holograms only to have them flicker away, leaving a faint afterimage of light. Memory ghosts, she said, smirking. They help you remember what you forgot. Ethan quipped, great ghosts of past drunken escapades across galaxies. Can't wait to meet the sequel. As the chapter closed, Ethan realized that he had stumbled into a story far larger than a missed coffee or a wrong turn in the orbital station. Humor became his armor, curiosity his guide, and the unexpected possibility that he might actually be a father in an alien royal lineage became his inescapable reality. The daughter's question lingered, playful yet heavy, like a star suspended in the void. Are you my father? Ethan smiled awkwardly, clumsily, and decided that if he was going to navigate this tangled galaxy, he might as well do it with wit, coffee, and a spectacularly bad sense of timing. Ethan woke to a soft hum vibrating through the floor panels, the kind that made his teeth buzz in a way he would have sworn was unnatural if he hadn't experienced it countless times on different starships. He sat up on a floating bed that seemed to anticipate his weight and motioned toward the small tray of breakfast capsules spinning gently beside him. Breakfast or a tiny space drone trying to bite me? He muttered aloud. The daughter appeared at the doorway, balancing on what appeared to be a mini anti-gravity skateboard, her long ears swaying like twin pendulums as she grinned. Both, she said, snatching one of the capsules and popping it in her mouth. Your life just became 1 part parental responsibility, 2 parts interstellar absurdity. Ethan rolled his eyes. That ratio seems scientifically imbalanced, he said, and the capsule in his hand fizzed with a tangy, slightly alarming glow. Also, tastes like regret, delicious regret. She laughed, the sound echoing in the chamber with the faint resonance of metallic bells. They navigated corridors that seemed to bend gently as if the station itself were nudging them forward. Ethan stumbled once, colliding with a hovering utility drone which beeped indignantly before zooming away. I really should bring a helmet next time, he muttered, for dignity if nothing else. She leaned against the console rail, ears twitching in amusement. Dignity is overrated. Survival in your first meeting with the Queen is what counts. Ethan swallowed nervously, hoping survival didn't involve laser traps or holographic etiquette tests. Eventually, they reached a chamber dominated by a massive window overlooking the nearby nebulae. The stars stretched endlessly, streaking and dancing in brilliant colors Ethan had no names for, though he attempted to identify constellations. Bet you don't get much of this view on Earth, the daughter teased. Your nights are, well, dark and slightly damp. Ethan grinned. We have nightlights. She shook her head, the long ears flopping comically. You call those nightlights adorable. The conversation eased some of the tension, letting Ethan realize that humor could bridge even decades of interstellar secrets. She gestured toward a small console and activated a series of holographic recordings. Scenes flickered into life. A younger Ethan, aboard a different starship, engaged in chaotic experiments, laughing at the explosions he caused while attempting interstellar navigation. The Queen appeared in fleeting moments, her face soft, thoughtful, and tinged with sadness, a stark contrast to the commanding figure he had met the night before. Ethan tried to interact, reaching for one hologram, only to have it dissolve with a fizz like a soap bubble. Memory ghosts, the daughter said. They're like ghosts but less polite. Ethan frowned. Great, haunted by my past self. Can't wait for the sequel, The Reckoning of Space Coffee Spills. She laughed again, floating closer on her skateboard, ears swaying like rhythmic indicators. They passed through a laboratory where floating devices monitored energy signatures that Ethan didn't understand, each emitting a faint melodic hum that made the air shimmer with color. The daughter explained that these devices had been adapted from ancient Viralian technology, designed to detect anomalies in human DNA that resonated with alien lineage markers. Ethan muttered, so I'm basically a walking interstellar puzzle? That's comforting. She nodded gravely and slightly terrifying, but mostly fascinating. Ethan smiled nervously, trying to imagine the sort of parental handbook that included alien detection protocols, zero-gravity diaper training, and tea service etiquette. Lunch was an amusing affair in the mess hall where food hovered in small magnetic bowls. Ethan attempted to grab a slice of what looked like alien fruit, only for it to float away with a ping, narrowly missing the queen's ceremonial robe as she entered. "You humans and your clumsy hands," the daughter said, ears flicking sharply. "You've already caused a minor diplomatic incident before meeting her properly." Ethan muttered, "I swear the fruit attacked me first." The queen's gaze softened, though her long ears twitched as if suppressing a smile. "Do you always speak to strangers this way?" she asked, voice tinged with curiosity. Ethan shrugged. "Yes, it's called charm. Mostly ineffective charm, but charming nonetheless." Over lunch, she asked about Earth, life on a planet with so little attention from cosmic explorers, and Ethan attempted explanations peppered with humor. "Imagine a world where your pets are in charge of Wi-Fi signals and your traffic jams are regulated by invisible cosmic entities who might be bored or malevolent, depending on the day." "That's Earth," he said. The daughter laughed, ears wagging, and even the queen's subtle smile betrayed amusement. It was the first time Ethan realized that humor was perhaps the only universal language across galaxies. After the meal, they returned to the observation deck, where Ethan tried to process the fact that he might indeed be the father of someone with long ears, cosmic awareness, and a sense of humor sharp enough to rival his own. The daughter pushed a panel and projected a holographic map of star systems, trade routes, and secret paths through nebulae. "Your involvement is crucial," she said. "You were part of a long chain of events, mostly human misadventures that affected empires and alliances without your knowing." Ethan squinted at the map. "So basically, I'm an intergalactic accident with charm and slightly questionable judgment." She tilted her head, ears flopping in mock consideration. "Exactly. But a charming accident, which makes it all more tolerable." They paused in front of a display showing a distant sector where a rebellion had been quietly brewing, energy surges and communications intercepts blinking like mischievous fireflies. Ethan looked from the map to her, a weight settling in his chest despite the humor of their interactions. "So all this is my fault?" he asked, half joking. She grinned. "Not entirely. Mostly a mix of fate, cosmic irony, and your spectacular incompetence." Ethan laughed, a hollow sound that echoed against the observation deck walls, realizing that the absurdity of the situation was perhaps the only thing keeping panic at bay. As the day faded into the gentle, artificial night of the station, Ethan and the daughter lingered in the observation chamber, sipping luminescent drinks that wobbled like liquid stars. "You know," Ethan said, "I never thought I'd be floating through space, having a heart-to-heart with someone who might actually be my kid. And she has ears like that. Talk about pressure." She nudged him playfully. "Pressure builds character, Earth Dad." Ethan laughed, shaking his head. "If by character you mean existential dread mixed with caffeine, sure." She laughed in response, the sound carrying like wind through crystal towers. The chapter ended with Ethan leaning back, observing nebulae shifting in the distance. A mixture of fear, curiosity, and reluctant excitement settling over him. Humor had softened the edges, jokes had bridged the alien divide, but the weight of possibility of being part of something cosmic, irrevocable, and familial remained, glowing faintly like distant stars in the infinite dark. And Ethan knew that the galaxy had a sense of humor that would follow him every step of the way. Ethan floated through the corridors of the palace with the practiced awkwardness of someone who had spent years navigating gravity fields that never quite cooperated. He had already survived the accidental tea fountain incident, the hovering fruit rebellion, and dozens of small etiquette disasters, but nothing could have prepared him for the queen's private audience. The daughter led him to a chamber that shimmered with liquid light floors, walls of transparent alloy that rotated slowly to reveal the cosmos beyond, and constellations that shifted as if the galaxy itself were watching. Ethan swallowed. "So, I hope casual coffee spills are acceptable here," he muttered. She rolled her eyes, ears twitching, and said, "Only if you consider diplomatic incidents a warm-up." The queen was already waiting, seated on a throne that seemed to float slightly above the floor. Her long ears traced delicate arcs in the air, twitching with subtle anticipation. She regarded Ethan with a mixture of authority, curiosity, and he could swear something like affection. "Ethan," she said, voice steady, "you have wandered into a path that was set in motion long before you understood it." Ethan tried to nod wisely, but gravity flickered underfoot and he nearly toppled over. "Well," he said, catching himself on the edge of a console, "if destiny involves balance issues, I'm definitely qualified." The queen gave a hint of a smile, a soundless acknowledgement of his humor, and gestured for him to come closer. The daughter floated next to him, leaning lazily against a hovering display of rotating star charts. "Go on," she said, "answer the question before you start tripping over the floor again." Ethan looked at the queen, then back at her. "Okay," he began cautiously, "so 20 years of searching, secret missions, cosmic espionage, and apparently intergalactic coffee etiquette, are we sure I'm the dad? Because I don't even remember half the things I did in zero gravity sober." She laughed, a rich, melodic sound that made his chest tighten in an unfamiliar way. "You are," the queen said, calmly but firmly. "And your presence now is more than coincidence, it is completion." Ethan stared, processing, then muttered, "Completion, huh? Sounds fancy. So does that mean I get parental leave in space, or do we just wing it with Nebula babysitting?" The daughter giggled, ears wagging in amusement. "You'll figure it out, mostly through trial and error." Ethan's grin widened despite the knot forming in his stomach. Humor had carried him this far, it would carry him further. The queen stood, and the air seemed to pulse with energy as her long ears quivered. "I sought you because our worlds are entwined in ways neither could foresee. Our actions, however small, ripple across galaxies. Your choices, your humor, your mistakes, they are as crucial as your courage." Ethan swallowed, finally seeing the weight of it. He wasn't just an accidental visitor to this alien court. He was part of a legacy, one that had shaped the lives of a daughter he barely knew and a queen who had carried hope for decades. The daughter floated closer, bumping into him lightly. "You're going to be okay," she said. And for the first time, Ethan allowed himself to imagine what it would be like to be part of something bigger than drifting aimlessly through space with caffeine and bad jokes as companions. "Mostly okay," he said, "as long as the universe doesn't force me to learn alien diplomacy overnight." She laughed, a warm, teasing sound. "You're already learning, every spill, every joke, it's training." Together, the three of them moved through the palace toward the observation deck, where the view of the nebulae stretched endlessly. Ethan looked at the daughter, and for the first time he felt a genuine connection, a tether to the stars and to someone who could be part of his life in a way he had never imagined. The queen floated beside them, long ears sweeping elegantly, the embodiment of grace tempered by decades of waiting. "You have grown," she said softly, addressing Ethan. "From a wanderer of space to someone who recognizes the responsibility in humor, the weight in laughter, the meaning behind choice. This is your path now, and it is yours to walk with courage." Ethan nodded. He had made mistakes, tripped over countless obstacles, and spilled more liquids than he cared to admit, but he had survived, learned, and even laughed along the way. Humor had been his anchor, curiosity had been his guide, connection had been his reward. "So," he said, voice a mixture of relief and awe, "I'm officially what, Dad? Ambassador of Chaos, Nebula Negotiator." The daughter tilted her head, long ears flicking, and said, "Yes, all of the above." Ethan laughed, the sound echoing through the observation deck, carrying with it both absurdity and triumph. They watched the stars together, a human, a daughter, and a queen whose search had spanned decades. The universe stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities and dangers, of absurdities and marvels, but for the first time, Ethan felt anchored. He was part of something that mattered, something that spanned generations, planets, and light years. He had been forced to confront mistakes, secrets, and a question that could have shattered him, and yet here he was, stronger, wiser, and still capable of making terrible jokes. As the nebulae shifted in the distance, glowing with colors he would never name, Ethan